Is it that crazy though? Hello people of the internet, welcome back to another video related to Drag Race numbers. I saw this comment under last week's video regarding who I'm excited to see, and I felt like I should address it in its own video. I also wanted to make this video because everywhere look, people are just straight up being mean to Ginger Minj because she's back for the season, while either ignoring that it's Georgia's third time in 4 years competing, but it's like totally different because it was for charity and stuff and it's like a whole new game. Or maybe they have just different standards for their faves, I guess. So I did the only sensible thing and created a formula about drag queens and their comebacks. Yeah, I did math again to scientifically explore what the objective excitement level for a drag queen returning to All Stars should be. The formula takes the queen's latest appearance year, subtracts their first appearance year, and divides it by 2 to the power of the number of times the queen returned. I decided to do it that way because, according to people, queens coming back multiple times is annoying, and so the divisor should get bigger exponentially. The number that we get at the end I will call the CTS, Comeback Time Score. For example, Georgia's first competed in 2022 and her latest appearance was just announced 2025. Therefore, we have 3 divided by 2 to the power of 2, because it's her second time returning, and we get a CTS of 0.75. I applied this formula to every US drag queen who has come back for All Stars, including versus the World and Global All Stars franchises. And since a lot of queens have the same score, I put them into different categories for you to get a better idea. And also doing a second regular season counts as the first return. Starting off, we have the queens whose score is 4.5 or higher. So all of them had almost a decade or more between their appearances. Congratulations to Nicole Paige Brooks from Atlanta, Georgia, for having the highest score of 7.5, closely followed by her All-Stars 10 sister Phoenix. Those of you who have a keen memory will remember that I was very excited for those two, even though they seem like novelty wildcard casting choices, since they were both second outs. But when it's that long ago since they competed, I will be excited for them to come back no matter what they did the first time around. This is also true for all the other queens in this category. Next up are the queens who have a score ranging from 4 to 2.5. Those queens are usually queens who kinda have to reintroduce themselves to newer fans with their comebacks. And interestingly, we have 3 queens who returned twice to All Stars in this category: Chanel, Roxy, and Alyssa. Their last appearance was in 2024, and I do remember that not a lot of people pushed back against those casting choices. The few complaints that I remember seeing could be due to the cast of All Stars 9 being relatively small for having 3 queens on there who returned for the third time, but nobody complained about Alyssa coming back though. Next up are the queens whose score is either 2.5 or 2. There are also 3 queens with a lower number here, but I'll touch on them after I talk about the 2 and 2.5 queens here on this slide. In my personal opinion, this is a very good score to have if you're returning to All Stars for the first time. There has been enough time to grow, tour, make some money, and connect with other artists and designers. For the second time returnees, it still feels like a welcome addition. Aja's return, for example, is justified with immense artistic and personal growth, and also backed by the unfair treatment she got in All Stars 3, for which she definitely deserves some kind of compensation. Kennedy's third time on the show didn't receive much pushback either, because it's a Canada versus the World season and they always have some strange casting choices, and according to rumor, they do struggle to find queens who want to come back and be judged by not RuPaul heights. And concerning the other queens, Shangela returned to All Stars only once, but remember, I'm counting returns to regular seasons too. On the other hand, Manila and Alexis had to endure the stupid All Stars 1 format, so their third time competing was fair game, and Alexis' fourth time was technically a different franchise, because Canada's Drag Race and Canada's Drag Race vs. the World aren't judged or produced by the same people, so who really cares? Next up are all the queens who scored a CTS of 1.5, which translates to 3 years between appearances. This seems to be World of Wonder's idea of what the best time to return is, since this is the score most returnees share. For me personally though, this is maybe 1 year too soon, but I still think it's justified to have queens back at this time, especially when they can back it up with a lot of growth, a new aesthetic, or both. Funnily enough, Jujubee is here, which makes sense. In 12 years she competed in 4 seasons and one of them was All-Stars 1, which I don't think really counts, but yeah, at least the pushback for her UK versus the World appearance turned into a meme and people like her for appearing that often now, and I'm hoping for a Slation Royale guest judge appearance to really double down on her being in every format. As for Latrice, Mayhem, and Vanjie, I only remember people reacting negatively to Mayhem's 3rd time, since her first 2 seasons were kinda underwhelming. But remind me in the comments, please, if people were angry about the 3rd times of Vanjie and Latrice when All-Stars 4 and All-Stars 9 were announced, please. The next bracket is very small, but I wanted to talk about these in more detail, so bear with me. These 4 have the same score, but are received very differently. So Scarlett is of course the most dropped queen ever, so she gets a pass for coming back the 3rd time. And Shea and Trinity were welcomed back to All-Star 7 with mostly open arms, even though they were both very recently crowned and the cast was already overloaded with recent winners. But Ginger gets by far the most heat for returning, and even though I get that people are annoyed and would rather see somebody else, the pushback and hate is kind of disproportionate. Is it just because she's not known for good looks, which apparently is the most important thing for a drag queen or Drag Race? Because last time I checked, the most important categories for Drag Race are charisma, uniqueness, serve, and talent. And I'd rather see a queen who possesses those qualities than one who just serves looks, because then you end up with queens like Ariete who don't do well in anything that's not runway related. So let's just leave Ginger alone and move on to the second largest group of queens who scored a CTS of 1. This one is a strange one, because in my opinion it's definitely not enough time to see a lot of growth or craft refinement. However, I can see how it works for queens who had everything right the first time around, but just lacked the budget or maybe the confidence. So these queens with a CTS of 1 were at that point not the most exciting choice for me personally, but I can understand why they were for others. And also as a quick reminder, all of these queens earn more seasons per year on average than Ginger. Next up is another small group, but I have a lot to say about them, which doesn't mean that I don't like them, okay? All of them were good to great choices when they returned their first time. But to come back the very next year was a horrible choice for each and every one of them. Having Silky and Raja come back for Canada vs. the World only 1 year after All-Star 6 is a choice I will never understand. Because first of all, Raja should have won All-Star 6. And then having her back for another season and she does okay and then wins felt like strange, almost like a compensation. I have seen people saying that it was a 3rd act in a 3-season arc, and I don't know what they are talking about, because there was literally no difference between the All-Star 6 and the Canada vs. the World Raja. I don't remember Raja doing anything of note on Canada vs. the World, but to be honest, that season had nothing memorable except Isis Couture. And Silky also did not need to be there because she redeemed herself in All-Star 6 and had also nothing more new to showcase on Canada vs. the World. And I don't know what this season will bring, but I don't know what Jorgeous could potentially bring to the table that she didn't already show last year. Out of these 4, Eureka's case is the least offensive to me because her first return was due to her injury, and then she transitioned between her All-Star 6 and Canada vs. the World appearance. But it's still not great because it feels so anticlimactic because she performed the worst on her 4th attempt. This is what happens when you go on Drag Race that often in such a short amount of time. Then we have the queens who went back 1 year after their original season and therefore have a score of 0.5. Everything I said about the queens who have a score of 1 applies here too, but even more so. These feel like alternates who were just thrown into an already assembled cast and then production just watched and saw what happened, and yeah, they didn't really care about any of those. Valentina and Katja are exceptions here, of course, but they were voted Miss Congeniality by the fans, so yeah. There are 2 queens left who have a score of 0, and I think a lot of people know who one of them is, but I believe most of you forgot that the All-Stars 1 winner, Chad Michaels, won All-Stars in the same year she lost season 4, which is pretty iconic, I have to say. This makes the queens who have a CTS of 0 the most successful All-Stars queens, since 50% of them either won or their fate is still undecided as of this day. So yay! Fun category. In conclusion of this video, I will say this. All of this is subjective. You can be excited for whoever you want. These numbers don't mean anything and are just fun to look at. And even if you're annoyed with some casting choices like me, remember that it's not the queen's fault. So don't waste your time sending them hate, but invest that time sending love to your favorites or make a YouTube video about it. Bye!